All right, I call the meeting to order 6:02 for the November 6th, 2024 Planning Board meeting. My name is Stephanie Slish. I'm the chair of the Planning Board. To my right, I have alternate chair Jimmy Tarr. The far end, I have Doug Finn. To my left, I have John Jeffress. And the far end, I have Lee Bell. And then I have, Lori, what's your last name? Picard, okay. Lori, administrative assistant. So, and as always, a public forum. This is for what are in the audience and would like to speak to something not on. I think everyone here is on the agenda. So with that, we can close public forum and move to the approval of the minutes of the October meeting.
Being that I wasn't there, my opinion is probably.
I've read through them and we'll make a motion to accept as presented.
Yeah, I read them too, and they look good to me too. All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Approval of the minutes of October 2nd, as they were written. And thanks to Bella for that. All right, first item on our agenda is a public discussion with potential plans for 121 West Street, parcel ID number 216-4 and parcel ID number 216-5. We've had a couple of different folks coming through here in the past couple of years with asking about that parcel. So if we would have you both come to the front and so we can access this microphone here, introduce yourselves for the record, and then explain what brings you here tonight.
Jesse Camp, Stephen Herder. So we are coming in a manner to get kind of unofficial approval to move forward with a commercial project that involves what's deemed flex space. So it's in a nutshell, it's basically a building that is a larger storage unit that houses individual businesses. So we would be renting out this space to individual tenants that have small businesses, online businesses, small warehousing type companies. The roofer that rents but doesn't have a place for their truck and their supplies and all their equipment, things like that. So that's kind of our primary market for tenants, but the flex space does allow for a number of potential tenants based on its kind of design. There would obviously be limitations that we would probably set just on our own end. Some issues that we've run into are, the sewer doesn't go all the way up there. So we obviously couldn't have somebody that like a brewery or something like that, just throwing that out there, that would be using tons of water, for instance. So there would be limitations. So a couple of things, we just wanted to come here and just kind of broach the topic and see if there were any real concerns on your end about the plans and the project that we have set forth. We provided a copy of our business plan. I wasn't exactly sure. This is our first time, if you will. The page 2, I assume your packet matches ours. That's kind of a brief, kind of a mock-up of our ideas. The current lot, is it 5? Is what we see here in the lower right-hand corner with the house. There's a potential for renovating the house. We don't anticipate demolishing the house. We'll probably keep what's the foundation and do something with it. We're just kind of not exactly sure what yet. The other part of the lot 4 there has that parking lot with the buildings along that south side of the lot line, or the lot along the line within, obviously these are rough sketches. They're not obviously to scale, so we would be following any requirements thereof. We're currently working with Fleetwood Environmental Solutions for a wetlands evaluation, which, since we're not the only ones that have come here, I'm sure somebody else has done that as well. If you have any insight, we'd be curious.
Love to hear.
We wouldn't mind some history if you are able to share that information. So we're working with him on delineating some wetland within the lots. We're also working with Berkshire Design for a site assessment. And we're kind of in the preliminary discussions with them. We're also trying not to get too far over our heads monetarily before we, A, come to you guys, B, get our wetlands kind of due diligence process on our way to hopefully purchasing this property.
Cool. So I know you spoke to Bella, who couldn't be here today, who's our assistant planner, about this, and so she just gave us her notes. She couldn't be here tonight; she's traveling. So we're aware of this, but obviously it's good to present to the public and let them know about this. The one thing is, like, the house to me is that can stay. So basically, we are allowed to approve things that are allowed in the light industrial zone, right? And so whatever is in our table of use and our zoning bylaws for a light industrial zone. And that what you're proposing, I don't know if it would fall into our table of use, which is that's the big first thing that comes to mind. Because yes, self-storage facilities are allowed, but not allowed in light industrial is you don't allow like warehouse storage or sales or storage of distribution of building materials, for example, or freight or trucking terminals, which that kind of looks like. And so that is just the first thing that comes to mind with this. Regardless of how I personally feel about that part about the use, I think it's a really interesting idea. I don't know, we might be constricted by what is allowed in light industrial use per our zoning bylaws, and that's just my first thought.
I have a slight answer to that.
Yep.
So the idea is to search out tenants that fit the criteria of the actual zoning versus trying to get special permits or anything of that nature. The perfect example is I own J Camp Electric here in town, and I'd love to be able to put my shop in there. Spot for the vans to park and all the material and our office to be set in the back of that shop. And so we kind of want to mirror that for any other small contractors in the area or anything of that nature that may need that type of space. That's primarily who we were planning on marketing to. Obviously, we might get somebody as the word spreads to say, hey, can we fit our business into your plan? I think that's when I think every tenant is going to have to come either to you guys or at least already have a list of approved businesses.
That's actually,
It's the table of use.
That's interesting. He's proposing creating a space where uses under the zoning bylaws would be acceptable, and they could move in. That's an interesting take.
Which would be like the professional, medical, and business offices and services. I'm just looking at what actually is allowed in that.
And of course, we would have our own restrictions because, there's certain businesses where you don't want to mix with, say, a construction company,
Right.
or, something of that nature. We love the idea of having a coffee shop there, but does that classify as a restaurant? And it's like, do we really want a restaurant there? Those type of things.
Yeah, like a convenience store would be allowed, a small scale retail establishment would be allowed, restaurant would be allowed. All these, they would have to come in for permitting. Refreshment stand, whatever that is, we have that listed. Yeah, professional, medical, building and offices, but let's see what else. Wireless communication, self-storage, scientific research facilities, telecommunications, medical marijuana dispensaries or testing labs, manufacturing of food products, Manufacturing of metal, blacksmithing, printing, engraving, bookbinding, processing or warehousing of agricultural products, general manufacturing and enclosed structures. I'm just trying to look here and see like, yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask a few questions? The proposal that you have outlined, first of all, I'm looking at the drawing that's in this packet, 3 stapled pages. It shows a long rectangular box with diagonal lines. The next page, it shows that alongside some, what appears to be buildings,
Yeah.
units.
That, the big gray line right down the middle
Yeah.
is the parking lot
Okay.
theoretically. And then in that rendering, there are 3 buildings in there that are 200 feet long apiece.
Sure.
Now,
Okay.
I just threw those in there just to kind of get the overall scope. We'd love to go that big, but we're almost certain that we're gonna have to go 1 building and then
At a
get
time,
approval
no.
for a second building.
Fair
down the
enough.
road type of thing.
The question I had is, the divided lines that are hashed together. I mean, obviously, there's no scale or anything on this, but do you foresee those as parking for semi-trailers?
Not semi-trailers. I was kind of thinking, so in my personal business, we tend to haul a trailer around that has a tractor on it or
Sure.
a
So you're
ditch
talking
digger
like
or
a
something.
standard landscape kind of
Correct,
that sort of
exactly.
thing, or what have you?
Yep.
Okay. Do you expect any materials to be stored outside of the buildings?
No, because I'm pretty sure in the zoning, you're not allowed to store anything exterior of the building.
Would you limit any given vendor to rental of more than a certain amount of space? Like I assume that each building consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 or 10 units.
Yeah.
Would you allow a vendor to rent out 6 of those 10 units?
A part of our business plan was to kind of make it scalable and bring in whatever type of business they need. If they needed 3 bays, we would kind of go to what they wanted. And of course, whatever is allowed for square footage per style business.
Okay. So we're not talking about storage materials outside of the building. There might be parking of vehicles and or trailers in the parking area.
Yep.
But there won't be, will there be any processing or manufacturing on site by any of the vendors? I mean, outside of the buildings?
Oh, outside of the buildings, no, not
Okay.
allowed. More because there's hazards of other people who are renting type
Okay.
of thing.
Any limitation, or do you foresee the need for any limitation for activity on the site? And by, I mean to say, time limitation, midnight activity, activity on Sunday, that sort of thing.
I see what you're saying. It's
Some
like after
storage
hours.
places are 24 hours, some are just business hours.
Yeah,
So I guess that would be a very good question because, I end up going back to my office at 10 o'clock at night sometimes. If we have to restrict that to every business that they can't get there after 5 PM.
I would say that if you're going back to your office in your vehicle and because you're doing some paperwork or whatever, that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about somebody loading and unloading a Bobcat onto a trailer and maneuvering a dump truck around the lot at 1 a.m, something like that.
I think we would have to heavily restrict that because there is a neighbor on the left side and across the street, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I think that's it.
So where we would allow businesses to operate, I don't want to say 24 hours, but have them be able to go on site to finish up paperwork in their office within the structures themselves. Any kind of outside activities would be logically limited. Well, we would attempt as best as possible to logically limit them so that they're not operating and basically causing a ruckus after hours.
Okay.
I mean, we know Amazon delivers all hours nowadays, so it's hard to say, all right, 8 PM is the limit. Well, what happens when Amazon delivers at 8:30?
Well, I think also too, so looking at the table of use, I think I talked to myself, or I looked in, so there's a section that said that allowed for light industrial is a planned business and industrial development, which you could argue that this is a development for an industrial like park in a way, but like in a different way that you're. Right, but I think that's how, but everything you're talking about is in here. It says, it gives a list of all the types of businesses that would be allowed in that you're, it would look at, it's 6.5 of our zoning bylaws. And in that, it also talks about the noise levels that are allowed between up until 10 o'clock, and then after 10 o'clock, it's a much lower noise level that's allowed. And so all of this stuff that we're talking about would be regulated if we treated it as a planned business, if you came to us as a planned business and industrial development kind of
And
approach.
maybe that's what I was getting at in terms of the time restrictions that, if you're coming in a personal vehicle, it's not going to create a lot of noise.
Right.
But if you're coming in with a 10-wheel truck with a trailer behind and somebody's clanking down, loading gates and all of that, it's like that's a whole.
Or backing up with a backup thing.
Yeah.
Bang, 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 bang,
Right,
bang.
exactly, yeah.
That would be a consistent irritant to a neighbor.
Yeah.
Well, and also, they would have to come to us before they started operating that business anyway.
Oh, right,
so-
no matter
Yeah.
what, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what we're looking to do basically, or to give some sort of like preliminary.
Kinda like a, yeah,
Yes,
go for
proceed,
it.
yes, I think this actually
Yeah,
could
we're
be a
all
use
about
that
it
fits in
kinda
the
thing.
zoning.
Yeah.
We'd like to give this guy the pages of the use table, 6.5.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
Yeah, I know you're saying you might want to stray away from the industrial development piece, but are all the things and then questions that were being brought up are all listed in this as treated as
Already covered
such?
it.
Yeah, as a planned business and industrial development.
Take a look at the use table in the zoning bylaw. That's kind of what we're going to be using. Screening is important, landscaping is important, stormwater management is very important.
Lighting.
Lighting is important,
Guidelines, design guidelines, we got to start on. Town lights.
yeah, the end of the design guidelines you can get, from the office, definitely.
Wetlands is going to be.
Neighbors.
Yeah, as
being
much
a
as
good neighbor.
possible. lower
Wetlands will be
impact.
tough, but that's conservation. And I don't know of any history on the site.
Yeah,
Anybody-
what someone looked to, a company like that just was probably looking for land, a solar company was thinking about putting in solar there, but then when they realized that, the 30 acres is a bunch of, there's rocks, and so you really can only develop, the front part, like very small portion of that 30 acres. They kind of stepped away from that. And then there was talk about, there's some wetland stuff happening in there that, we'll find
There was a company that was looking at solar on that site?
yep, on that site.
And I wonder if they do canopies over parking areas. I'm just saying, I
Right.
mean,
Right. Scope, we
Right.
do want to eventually either do solar on the buildings or on parking lot type
And
stuff.
that makes sense, yeah. I'm just looking at,
Wonder what the septic.
so yeah, it's
problems are.
5.18 of our table of use, and in there it refers you to go to special regulations for planned industrial development.
Okay. We'll revise that.
Yeah, I think is that what we think that they should go for related to any zone, an application?
I think that makes a lot of sense, yeah. I think the light industrial correct me if I'm wrong, I'm looking to you for confirmation. The light industrial was an attempt to sort of discriminate between the smaller industrial uses that we see a little bit further south on 5 and 10 and CNS, right?
Right.
Right.
That's kind of what we were trying to, that's the sort of cleave.
Yeah, like the
And-
difference between, processing earth products, bulk storage of soil, ground sample, commercial excavation stuff.
A lot of
That
on-site
is
activity, a lot of
industrial,
on-site
Not light
yeah.
industrial.
So based on what you're saying, it sounds like you would fit within the light industrial kind of concept, but you really need to look at the table of uses and understand our design guidelines as you plan your full application.
And the other thing I think is that any potential tenants would have to be very, very aware of the restrictions that might be on their own individual businesses and whether they indeed do fit.
Especially with plans to grow, right? A lot of times
Right.
you start a business and then all of a sudden you go the way the market or opportunity takes you, and then all of a sudden they don't fit within the scope that might be allowed. So that's something that we see sometimes too.
So I'm thinking about an HVAC company that has an office there up in West Hampton. They do a lot of metal work on site in their shop, and that was kind of a point of contention when they were looking at getting a review. Even something like that, where there might be work being done in one of the units, I don't see it as a deal killer. That might just require a careful selection of the right unit for them. One of the units towards the back of the lot is probably not going to be in much of anybody's way or, cause too much trouble. So that might be managed just by selection of the right unit for that particular use. But yeah,
Appropriate management
Yeah. With the understanding that if you put them right out front and the neighbor complains about them doing metal cutting and grinding at all hours, then there's going to be an issue.
Right.
So, yeah,
But yeah,
there you go.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
this is
I think
a
you're
nice-
barking up the right tree.
Right.
I think,
is that
I
a
think
thing?
that's, what?
Can you bark at the right tree?
You can bark at the
Yeah.
right tree. Right, you can bark any tree all day long, but you can bark
the
up the
only-
right one occasionally.
The only thing that I'll say about the smaller, like 1 acre parcel with the house on it is that if you wanted, it's grandfathered in, pre-existing non-conforming to stay a house. So if you wanted to update that or make it an addition or whatever, you're allowed to do that. But if there's, or you can allow to do anything else that's allowed light industrial use, approved light industrial use as well. But there is like some, like, there's not really like residential development that can happen in light
Yeah,
industrial.
we were planning on building a bunch of houses back there anyways, so.
It probably wouldn't mix very well.
And that's a
probably.
little brown house right there on that exists.
Yeah.
Could make a nice little coffee shop,
Mm.
little restaurant. Just saying. That's an established use, or that's an allowed use.
That's an allowed
yeah.
use.
So we would have to get it rezoned if it was, so it could stay the residential zoning.
It's actually probably, yeah.
So that's, okay, so that's another thing we should bring up here,
Yeah.
Figure that out.
is that the map says it's light industrial. However, the property card says it's rural residential.
What's right?
So what is right is the question
I
that,
stopped by Kyle's on the
Yep.
way up here, and he said that the light industrial is the zoning and the card is wrong.
yeah, I would like to prevent any appearance of spot zoning. So if it keeps it more contiguous by having it light industrial, then I feel like that's probably the intent of it, or should be the intent
That was,
of it.
So he
that was what
says-
the building
Yeah,
inspector
it
said
says the map's
just
right.
prior to.
Cards are-
So can we just put a memo to the assessor's office and say that we've noticed this, it's an error, please make the correction?
Yes.
I think Kyle has to.
Yep.
Yeah, zoning officer, right.
And also a sit-down restaurant is allowed in a rural residential zone anyway, so,
It wouldn't,
which
yeah.
is interesting, but yes.
So would we be able to build a second structure on there, assuming wetlands is not the issue?
I mean, it's a 1 acre parcel, we have setback requirements, so I think there's a question of what you would be planning to do and what you propose to us would be a question.
Just gotta get permission.
Yeah.
You were referencing the zoning use, 5.18, is that what you said?
Upper table of use.
Okay, table of use, okay. I kept reading mention, and I didn't print it out. There was a mention of 6.1,
5?
6.5 maybe. It kept, a lot of the industrials, like light industrial was referencing 6.
Just the special permit regulations?
Special
Maybe it was
permit.
special permit.
Yeah, it might be.
That's just the standard process, method of managing a special permit application,
Gotcha.
I think, if memory serves. She's got the book.
That would be
for-
impressive if you remember that. Yeah, if it depends on if it's a special permit or a special, yeah, references 5.3.6, I don't know. Public hearing, 5.3.8, special permit. And I mean, if you're working with Berkshire Design, they are familiar with our zoning bylaws because they bring a lot of projects our way too, so.
Excellent. We got a few more questions if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Sewer. Now, we know that that road has been torn up and down for the last 5 years type of thing. How far is that sewer planning on going? Because we were told by the listing that the sewer was gonna be there eventually. We all know what that means.
The plan is supposed to go right to Chestnut Street, so close, adjacent,
Yeah,
not right to you, but close to you. That is not,
a permit we could pull to potentially tie in?
that would be something you could pay for.
I'll give you a piece of information. My house is on 59 Prospect Street, right across from the store. The nearest sewer to me was in front of the Polish Club on whatever street that is. I got a permit and went down my driveway on the greenway and across the street and tied into the sewer all the way over there. And after I did that, several of my neighbors tied into the line that I paid to put in.
But it was your cost.
My cost,
Yeah.
didn't matter. They paid the cost to tie into that line. But that's, at least 150 feet. So you might be able to pay the cost of getting to that sewer line on your own. Depends on what's in front of you, if you have to get right-of-ways across other people's land or whatever. I was only dealing with town property, so it was not a real problem.
Yeah, we were told that the vacant field, the one that had the horse barn,
Yeah.
right across from that, that's pretty much where it was ending, is what we were told.
Yeah, it's going to tie into the Chestnut Street because it comes down off of Chestnut Street there.
Okay, I gotcha.
So that's as far north as it
So
would
we
go.
could potentially talk to that neighbor and say, hey, if you want to get off of your septic that you probably just put in.
Escapes builders, folks, yeah.
I'll tell you something else about that piece of property. The owner died this spring. This spring, the owner of that property died. His name was Frank Stiebel. And his,
Of the field that you're talking
right,
about.
the field you're talking
yes.
about. His daughter, Eleanor Stiebel, is in charge of all the property now.
So we'll see what happens with that project.
Right.
Is kind of what you're saying.
They had a project planned in there, and we don't know what's happening with it since Frank died.
So we'll see. Yeah.
So, and she's in charge of his entire estate, and his estate is colossal.
Oh, you're talking about the tobacco barn next to the
Yes.
property that.
The reason why we got the MassWorks grant to extend the sewer in the first place, it was
Right.
people working with the town. So yeah, I think that's a question. I mean, you might take a look and depending on what you're proposed to build and like what septic requirements might end up happening, that it might, you might be stuck having to put in
Huge
a
septic
huge
system.
septic
It would be a
system.
huge
So that
septic,
would be
yeah.
something that you have to look into. Yeah, that might keep you, prevent you from doing something, a scope of something that you might, that might be something that could come up.
GPD.
If that isn't an option, right, the tie-in, but that would be something that you would have to choose to fund that one, make that decision to do that.
Okay.
Even though it's like right there.
Might be worth it compared to doing a septic, so,
It would be worth it.
yeah, 100%.
Given, if you're talking about the existence of wetlands, yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, it would,
Both short-term and long-term.
yes, yeah.
Well, that's actually a really good segue. Is there a permit we need to pull for taking down any of the trees that aren't deemed in the wetlands?
Conservation.
Conservation Commission.
They'll
that's
tell
a
you all about
conversation.
that.
Mhm. And there are like, we do obviously like want to preserve trees and things like that too. So it's just,
Sadly, they went and clear cutted all the good trees before it even went up for sale. So yeah, that's what created the wetlands was all the tree trucks driving back and forth, compacting the soil, and that's what created it. So
yeah, that's outside of our jurisdiction, but we make sure that Conservation Commission, is blessing it or whatever in order to move forward. So.
Do you have any information or can you point us in the direction of where there may be a plot plan for the residential lot? Things like location of septic.
Would the Registry of Deeds have that information?
The Registry of Deeds may have a plot plan. The Board of Health should have a plan for the septic if one was ever filed. If they have a Title V inspection, then there should be a plan for the septic somewhere.
I mean, I think the
What else
property
should we
card says it was sold last was 1970 something. So,
That's Donaldson's old house.
Yeah.
that might be.
we're anticipating this septic to be ripped out type of thing
Yeah.
because of the age, but it's better to find out.
At least know where it is.
Know where it is, right?
And also the buyer or the sellers are, you could always contact the buyer, like they might tell you who their septic company was that would service it, and they have a map too.
They've been pretty vague on communication, so
Oh, that's too bad.
yeah, it's been very difficult to get any answers. So that's why we're doing our due diligence here and all that. So
Okay.
I think
Any other questions for us?
I don't have any for you. Any others for us? Things that we should take away?
I mean, it's hard without seeing something. It's like this whole like dance of we need to see something in order for us to give feedback on it, but you obviously don't want to bring something to us if if it's like completely out of left field that we're not going to be on the same page about. But I think that it seems like something that could work for the town and for that parcel. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, you just have to follow our guidelines.
It looks pretty good. I reach out to DPW for the sewer question as soon as possible because that stuff.
Yeah, if
moves
you know
really
Garrett.
slow.
yeah, I'm calling tomorrow.
It moves really slow, so if
Do
they
you
get
know
on their
Garrett?
radar.
Well, then just talk to him because I know that we've talked about that whole process. and how to tie in and stuff like that. So he'll be able to just shoot you straight on it.
Cool. Thank you, Dustin. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and just so you're aware of the process of it, it's like, we would like an application, at least, how many weeks do we say, Lori? Because we have to, when there's a special permit application, we have to publish it in the Gazette. It's a state law that we have to publish it for 2 consecutive weeks ahead of our meeting. And so people think, oh, like, I'm going to get on the agenda the day before the meeting. No, we need like at least a month probably. Like,
Once
keep
fire
in
application is
communication.
35 days.
Keep in communication with us, and so we meet once a month, and so there's like that into play, and so we just want to make sure that expectations are all set around when to submit the application, and then when the hearing will be, and all that.
This is for both the sewer and for potential building.
Not the sewer, just the project in
Okay.
general,
Okay.
for the special permit. But-
Sewer is administrative, isn't it?
Yeah, sewer doesn't really come through us or anything.
No
It's,
meeting or anything.
That'll
That's
be
just,
DPW.
I mean, we look at if there's like wastewater issues or things, like it would be a part of the application to say that you're going to be using town sewer versus septic, but it's not handled by us. That Board of Health does septics, and then the DPW would be the one for the sewer. So you'll be getting to know everyone in all the town boards and committees.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
We already do.
Didn't get shot down right from the beginning. There's plenty of complications and plenty of stuff to pursue first, but it seems like your project is going to fit here, done correctly.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a great night.
All right. Thanks for your patience, Sean.
Oh, no problem. Actually, it's been incredibly interesting. I think we're all very lucky to have you guys doing this work because it seems tedious and you have to be extremely knowledgeable to do it. So I really appreciate all the hard work you all put in that.
Thanks, Sean.
if not tedious. Wait, I don't think that.
Was that devious or tedious?
Yeah, one or the other.
Definitely impressive conversation.
So Sean is here from the Comprehensive Plan Committee to give the final presentation on the outcome of this over 2-year-long process because it's our job as a planning board per Massachusetts state law to officially adopt any updated master plan. And so this is the final presentation. So thanks for being here tonight, Sean. I'm going to be doing the
PowerPoint?
PowerPoint
Great.
for you. So
Thank you very much. Stephanie served on the committee with me and put together this PowerPoint, so greatly appreciate that. It was, I have to look to see exactly how long, but it felt like 2 years of, 2 years of work, meeting regularly, a large group of folks, but we'll go through all of that right here. So how did we get here? So we got the grant around in 2021, funding for the comprehensive plan through the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Action Grant Fund. And that grant's focused on climate resiliency, but could be used as part of our comprehensive planning process. So we sort of built on past plans and updated it. And so this is the third comprehensive plan in Hatfield's history. So the process. We've got 7 key objectives that you'll see outlined in the plan. I believe this plan was shared a few weeks ago with the committee. So all of you have had a chance to look at it. But those 7 objectives for the watching audience, I guess, is to get a better sense of how the Connecticut River flows will impact Hatfield as climate change. To promote better understanding across Hatfield about the climate change impacts to be anticipated. To engage more deeply with certain sectors in town, especially seniors and farmers, to create a forum for open dialogue within the community about how best to adapt. We use both words and graphics to show major ideas and priorities, as you saw from that first slide that was up there, as well as public engagement and other actions identified in the final plan. And art, I would say, was brought throughout our process as a way of engaging people in town. If any of you attended our sort of community planning event at Black Birch. Art was a tremendous part of that. People sort of representing their ideas around the plan in artistic ways, which was really cool, and I think brought out interesting ideas from people in a different way than you normally get ideas in a process like this. Advanced dialogue on how to best to advance adaptation and mitigation within specific areas. You'll see that reflected by each chapter. And prioritizing actions with estimated timelines and recommended resources so that Hatfield can immediately take next steps. And as we'll mention, this plan's only as good as the efforts we take to move it forward. And so, really what we did is we really did clearly outline what was identified in this plan as ideal next steps and what should happen. But we'll need the help of committees like this to move some of these ideas forward. So when it comes to community engagement, we had many opportunities for community engagement. We held 2 focus groups for farmers, including one-on-one interviews and a survey. Actually, one of my head farmer from Prospect Meadow Farm attended one, and he said it was well attended. People were very engaged in the discussion. So it sounds like that event went well and actually represented a large part of the farming community. For seniors, we had a focus group conversation on the greatest assets and challenges, and a survey was mailed to every resident over 60. I was able to participate in listening to some of those conversations and reviewing some of the results from the survey. And so there was actually a reasonably good participation in that. For youth, we surveyed Smith Academy students and brought curriculum into the schools as part of this. And there was actually a contest, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, some sort of contest for the students. Do you recall anything about that?
Oh, there was definitely some sort of project-based thing.
Yeah, like a poster project or something that the schools did as part of this. We had a virtual gathering and an in-person event at Black Birch with over 50 attendees. And we did a townwide survey with around 200 responses. And we also tried to think of other creative ways to engage people around this work and to draw attention to the climate resiliency aspect of it based on sort of current events and timely things. So for example, when we were experiencing the floods of that summer, we hosted a flood tour. And we had one of the consultants on this project be able to join with townspeople and visit all of the places in town that were being flooded and talk about the impact of that and connect that directly to this plan. And we had over a dozen people participate in that and had a bus available to drive people around. And there were even more people at different locations who just showed up to the ones that sort of more were applicable to them. So we came up with creative ideas like that were really fun to do. And that the committee, all volunteers, really took on in organizing. The community input takeaways. The plan incorporates all of the feedback from in-person sessions and from the survey. And there's here's some raw data from the survey.
Yeah, there's 2 of the survey questions.
I'm sure you all probably have a channel plan. You would have seen the list of the robust team of consultants that helped this plan truly comprehensive. And these were all experts in their field. We got to learn a tremendous amount about them. I'd say particularly around flooding and the history of flooding and whatnot, and the expectations around future flooding. They helped us analyze FEMA maps and flood data, specialize in creating the amazing poster that we shared at the beginning. There were 11 volunteers on that committee representing town boards and committees and 3 at-large town members. So we, of course, give a big thank you to everyone who was able to make such a commitment for over a couple of years, too. And these were relatively frequent meetings and not necessarily short. Although now, as I'm sitting here with the planning board, I'm like, well, I'm sure you guys meet a lot. It actually is. So I don't know if it was at that level, but certainly it wasn't easy. The plan. So the vision statement. So for the audience, Hatfield aspires to preserve its rural charm, strong community bonds, and exceptional quality of life while embracing sustainable growth and inclusive practices to ensure this vision statement weren't made simply were large discussions over long periods of time where people representing every different committee in town were able to sort of add some input and even debate over individual words in this. So this was a very thoughtful process.
How to distill 300 plus pages into a vision statement.
Yes, yeah. Interesting data about Hatfield, you can see up there, our population is growing, our under 18 population is steady, though declining slightly. We're in a predominantly white community. So climate change risk, the nature of the action grant had us focus on climate issues specific to Hatfield. So Woodward and Kern, who were great actually to work with, analyzed proposed FEMA federal insurance rate maps that aren't implemented yet. So it's interesting impact reflecting that if it remains as it was presented to us. The river is flowing faster than it has been. The levee or dike is not sufficient for stopping floodwaters, but will slow down the flooding. I think this is one of the great things about our flood tour. We were able to actually, townspeople were able to ask questions about that actually on the dike with the flood experts, those who chose to come. So I think it's, beyond just this report, I think what's great about this process is that we gave people from town the opportunity to sort of learn more about things that are going to have a significant impact. So I think that's a great example. Big takeaway from the Comprehensive Plan Committee was that we need to be very cross-section of Hatfield to Smith Academy. They keep town hall and the fire station out of floodwater. The updated maps with new flow rates, that's the line in yellow, puts floodwaters lapping the doors of the town hall and the basement underwater. Puts the fire station under 2 feet of water. The red line up there shows what could be possible with climate change continuing at a similar rate to what a flood event could look like, and that would actually with water and about 4 feet of water in the fire station as well. It was interesting when we were talking about that and what that would mean, because obviously as flooding increases, the further it increases, it creates issues with opening doors and things like that. So what does it mean on certain aspects of infrastructure? One of the top priorities in community surveys and from the public in past master plan surveys. So key themes.
I wanted to ask
Like
them,
Harvard math, I think.
what
The
can
town
we
has-
do to lap them?
Yeah. So the key themes, there are 7 key themes, which you'll see here. Farmers, some suggested actions include resolving ditch maintenance and wetlands permitting issues. I will emphasize the resolving ditch maintenance piece. I think that is, farmers mentioned it constantly. On our farm, it's a huge, massive concern and how it impacts our neighbors. And I heard from the agricultural consultants who did this project that it was like sort of a common thing they heard.
And it also came up in our municipal vulnerability preparedness plan, a key action of mapping those ditches out and figuring that out. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and when we hear, the impact on our property, it's sort of, we will do something where it shouldn't cause any additional, just add some more stone to our driveway or something. And it shouldn't cause any more additional flooding, but because all of these drain ditches continue to just get filled and filled and filled from whatever, wash water, and then it's
Maintained.
yeah, and it's a question of, well, is it on our property, on their property? Oh, can I do it? Can I not do it? It's just not clear. And that's the problem. And then now, of course, liability concerns and things like that. Everything's a little bit different.
Wetlands, if you're not
In
a farmer.
wetlands, yeah. And so there just needs to be more clarity around it, because I certainly think everyone's willing to do the work involved in fixing it. Seeking out opportunities to collaborate and partner with surrounding towns and supporting farmers. Actually, and that makes me think, I wonder if there's towns ditch maintenance that maybe we could identify.
Hadley is in the process. MVP action grant funds to map out their ditches. So.
That's cool. Maybe we need to do that, yeah. Addressing soil health improvement and cover crop challenges by facilitating and encouraging improved practices. Let's see, we want to show the reduced flood risk to town-owned facilities. Some of the suggested actions around that are to analyze and prioritize relocation or flood resilience upgrades needed for public facilities and other facilities and services most at risk in the floodplain, with an eye towards to consolidate resources and centralize services. We spoke quite a bit about that too throughout our work. Ensure that the new wastewater treatment facility is designed to minimize future flood risk, and conduct a flood risk analysis of the Mill River to better understand how current and future flows can impact the town. Plan for resiliency of Hatfield's historic and cultural resources. Some of the suggested actions in that include pursuing planning for resiliency in place and appropriate retrofitting of at-risk historic resources to sustain flooding impacts. Collaborating with other Connecticut River communities with similar flood risk, potential for state or federal planning and funding support. Also, we'd like to identify the best location for Hatfield's museum and archival materials for longevity, resiliency, and public access, possibly upstairs at Town Hall, and investigate archival grant programs to fund organizing and safeguarding of collections. One thing I think we all learned from the big flooding season, but just also while doing this work here, while that was all going on, so hearing from flooding consultants is how suddenly this could come on. You know, really at any point, there could be a sudden big flood that impacts, you know, some building in town. And you don't want that to be the building ideally where all of your, you know, historical and archival things are. So it was interesting to hear how really at any point, come. Thriving local economy. So you see the giving greater shape to commercial development along Route 5 and 10, something we talked quite a bit about. And suggestions included rezoning along the full extent of Route 5 and 10, extending the sewer line. You know, some of us, I think, you know, in talking about this, had that jealousy of the benefit to Hadley tax-wise of having developed strip there and the potential possibilities in the future of further development along that strip to support.
And it allowed them to preserve a lot of their farmland, like 50% of their land in Hadley is preserved.
Yeah. And the character of their community too, for the most part, preserved. But I can
Outside of Route 9.
Yeah, outside of Route 9. Yeah, you got to give something sometimes. So support for continued viability of Hatfield's farms. Some suggestions include promoting the leasing of town-owned conservation land to small and beginning farmers, setting up a market garden farm incubator of some sort. Another idea was exploring opportunities to aggregate and also market Hatfield-grown products at events, fairs, festivals, and surrounding towns. An active agricultural committee could potentially take on some of those things, and maybe there's some grant funding out there for that, or further partnership with an organization like CISA to figure out how to pursue things like that. Maintaining opportunities for development within the context of our character, which was of conversation, particularly for the downtown Main Street area. Views of zoning bylaws and maps to reduce spot zoning and make sure local zoning meets the intent of the state law. Review lands, current industrial zoning inventory to determine what is actually developable and where can industrial zoning be moved that is more practical. We actually had some fun activities around this where we had big maps and got to sort of envision what could be where as a committee and around the impact of that and what that would mean.
Yeah, and the we talked about is a lot of our light industrial and industrial land is in wetlands area. And so that was something that came up as like, well, why is that zone light industrial and industrial? So.
Yep. And I think some of these examples just show you how thorough this process was too, you know. It included to fund a planning board staff position and consider increased support to attract qualified people. Another one that you'll see up there, enhancing economic vitality through a well-maintained transportation network. The suggestions around that were performing regular traffic data collection on roads to assess existing travel speeds, vehicle volume, crash history at key locations in town, and potentially installing an additional speed feedback sign. The next one there, assessing potential for renewable and alternative energy production, especially associated manufacturing and services. Some suggestions include determining the appropriate locations, siting requirements and regulations to encourage green industry and jobs. Another one's to identify how town can set examples with investments in renewables, particularly electric vehicles and charging stations and solar on public buildings. You can see when you travel sometimes, there's town halls that, and actually as I'm saying it, I'm like, we don't have one here, have power charging stations, right outside of their town hall that people are able to use. And I think that's not only useful for the people who work in town hall and visiting the downtown, but people who are passing through. And sort of it encourages people who are passing through to stop, walk through your downtown, visit businesses, things like that. Because I've seen Jimmy and Betsy have to do that with their electric vehicle. So I know that's how it can happen. Let's see here. So encouraging temporary commercial use in town center with pop-up and mobile commercial offerings. Some suggestions around that include utilize existing buildings, including accessory buildings and existing spaces such as parking lots to host pop-up and mobile commercial offerings. I think one thing that we heard from some parents and sort of just throughout the process from younger families, I'd say in town, is this desire for more activity, more downtown stuff, things your neighbors interact. And so I think some of these opportunities like that.
Yeah, and also we heard that there's no public bathroom accessible to anyone downtown, which is another.
Yep.
Another
So
thing
things like that. Yeah. So creative ideas. How do you, make sure the bathrooms in town hall are accessible during special events and whatnot. Next is health and wellness. So the first one you see up there is expanding opportunities for passive and active recreation in Hatfield. Some suggestions include providing access for non-motorized boats to Mill River above the dam, and expanding the sidewalk network throughout town to increase walkability. That's something certainly I think a lot of people felt strongly about. If you're not living directly in the sort of immediate downtown area, you don't necessarily have that same benefit of the walking paths of the sidewalks. And in an aging community, it adds a health benefit, which is great, but also it's attractive to young families. It attracts people to a town, potentially too, the fact that their kids can walk on a sidewalk to go see their friends and whatnot. So that's something that and I think we thought it sort of creates other neighborhoods and thinking about the town infrastructure in general in the long term. If you think about sidewalks and how they define spaces, and then the added element of infrastructure, you're creating new sort of town centers too, and new communities within the town, which is interesting. Let's see. Yeah, so we talked about expanding the trail system. That changed sort of, well, actually the bike system is actually what I'm thinking about right now, but building additional trails for hiking and passive recreation. But what I know, and from my conversations with people, several people felt like there's been some great work around this in our town, and there's some beautiful trails that have been defined over the years, thanks to certain very active town members who were committed to that. But continuing that and building on that, creating a map of trails that includes difficulty ratings, accessibility notes, parking, etc., and benches along some of the walking routes. Ensuring older adults in Hatfield can age in place. Some suggestions include redeveloping existing properties for small congregate homes and updating zoning to allow for that. Look at zoning for additional rental housing opportunities within walking distance to amenities and services. And I would note some of the creative ideas that are able to sort of make some progress towards some of these things that different departments in town have done. And I'll use a Council on Aging example. Do each year now, the last 2 years, you count your steps. And ultimately there's prizes and whatnot associated with it. And so that's a way where you can encourage people to sort of make the extra effort to get to our sidewalk system. Because a lot of people have been doing that together, and you report steps, and it was something that people were talking about a lot and happy about. So I think some creative ideas can sort of maybe make access to our existing sidewalk system more attractive to people because it's sort of part of something bigger, a community event or a goal or something. So there's other things we could do with that potentially. Affordable homes and vibrant neighborhoods. So there were a lot of thoughts around that. So we can explore where there may be options for other village centers in town with livable and walkable neighborhoods, as I was talking about earlier. We can provide housing stock that protects and maintains the scenic, natural, and historic resources of the town. This includes ensuring open space protection when building housing, as well as adopting low-impact development standards for all development. We can also promote housing that is financially all ages and housing configurations through increasing affordability and adding affordable housing units to make progress towards the MGL percent. Are we required to get to that goal? Is it
If it's a goal, then a project can come in and we don't.
Under 40B,
Yeah,
yeah.
under 40B, yeah, we don't.
Basically by right with very little review, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So there is a consequence for not being at that, which is just, yeah.
We're right now at like 2.8% or 3%, something like that. So we're not, it's not like we're close. We're very, very far away from that. And it's something that I'm encouraged, but the new town administrator actually in his interview made a comment about how he has worked with his previous town to help it. You know, they were at like 9 point something%. And so I'm curious to see the learnings come and see if he's interested in help.
No, and some suggestions from the committee was identifying a location for additional public housing and seek project approval and funding. I know in terms of that, is there creative ways to do mixed use, you know, where so maybe it's a certain element is, you know, elders and a certain element is some other, you know, maybe it's a low income community, maybe it's a disabled community, whatever it might be, some mixed use, so that you're giving opportunity for some of the older people in town who might want to downsize to have additional places to stay in town while still creating some growing communities and freeing up some houses, potentially larger houses, to add more families into town to support our schools, and making town increasingly vibrant. Protecting Hatfield's community character is a huge piece of what we talked about, and some suggestions around that is pursuing a local historic district study for the Hatfield Town Center with updated historical commission documentation, and strengthen the current demolition delay bylaw to cover buildings 75 years or older. Encouraging stewardship of Hatfield's historic resources. So some suggestions for that include pursue certified local government status with the National Park Service, which provides a direct pathway for increased state and federal support and funding. Benefits of becoming a CLG include access to grant funds, local involvement in the National Registry of Historic Places, local involvement in reviewing compliance. And I think some of these things leads the town, and maybe the town administrator, to pursue some of these grants that, you know, often our cases strengthened by having this thoughtful planning process, you know, in place too. So hopefully this can be used as part of some of the applications for some of these things that we note in here.
Term Hatfield becoming a CLG.
Certified local government.
With the National Park Service.
Thank you.
And then continue to advance, and I talked about this earlier, pedestrian safety within the town's transportation network. So that's identifying gaps in the sidewalk network and prioritizing projects to fill those gaps. And there were some ideas potentially starting with Main Street, Bridge Street, Gore Ave, Prospect Street, King Street, Chestnut, and Elm were what people brought up. Ensure optimal functioning and locations of crosswalks in town. Actually, on Halloween, that became very clear. I mean, walking on Main Street and Halloween with kids, they're trying to have them cross the street. There were some people flying down that road. It was wild. Growing food, and there, you know, are some challenges around that with obviously the impact of flooding and whatnot. but embarking on a program of farmland protection that matches state goals of protecting 50% of currently cultivated lands, which entails adding an additional 857 acres, about 35 acres a year, until 2050, to the 521 acres already conserved for agriculture in town. Develop internal procedures for the town regarding right of first refusal of farmlands being converted from agricultural use under Chapter 61A, so that important farmland protection opportunities are not missed. Next is protecting drinking water supply. And some of the suggestions around that include evaluating drinking water supply protection vulnerabilities through an analysis of existing protected land and needed land protection, and reviewing provisions in the zoning bylaw on drinking water supply and protection, and update where more control and guidance are needed to ensure continued integrity of sources. And of course, support sustainable forestry practices to ensure healthy forest ecosystems and prevent erosion. Questions for that first one you see up there, ensuring that Hatfield keeps its schools retaining full enrollment of local students. Some suggestions include supporting a third-party study that provides a complete understanding of existing costs, needs for the long-term, and strategies towards a more sustainable school district in Hatfield. Let's see, another together as a community goal is celebrate agriculture. And some suggestions around that include organizing and promoting local educational events and workshops on topics including farm succession, planning, soil health, pollinator health, regenerative farming practices, agroforestry, et cetera. Again, that might be something we can partner with existing community, regional community organizations to do. Undertake a Pride in Hatfield Grown program, like I talked about earlier, that starts locally, perhaps drawing on a New England prize, which actually our school has applied for a couple of times. And so we could potentially, next time we apply, include a reference to this longer term plan. Actually, I will bring that up to them next time they apply. Also ensure as a community, together as a community, ensuring that all public buildings, park, especially, with wanting to increase space, people having the opportunity to get together, teens, are told by someone of a teen center that used to exist near the center of town, Yes, and I know towns have moved away from things like that, but maybe they're small towns, but maybe there's opportunity to sort of bring back some of the benefits that came with something like that, even if it's on a pop-up basis or something like that. And that's part of that, improving the communications, because people know there are a lot of great events like that happening around town, but what we heard from all their members of the community, of the committee, is it's hard sometimes to find out about those events. I think one of the better examples of good communication, though, as a Council on Aging member, would be the Council on Aging newsletter. It's something that does get out to people, go to homes. But, if you're under 60, I believe is the age, what the events are. So there might be more we can do around that. Let's see, in improving and adapting our transportation infrastructure and services to support an aging population while also meeting the needs of a diverse younger demographic. And some of our suggestions include a complete streets plan to create connections for walking and biking and to win designation as a complete streets community so that Hatfield can qualify for state funds. I don't know if this is also I can't remember if this is all elsewhere, but I know connecting the bike paths is sort of part of that goal. And while there's been some temporary hiccups, I think our goal is still to do that, to help accomplish some of these objectives.
Yeah, that was the next bullet point, Sean.
Well, there, see, I got right ahead of myself. Explore alternatives to access the regional use path network, as well as feasibility of joining the regional bike share program. And next is enhancing support for Hatfield's historic and cultural assets. And those suggestions were working with the Hatfield Cultural Council, working with the Mass Cultural Council and other cultural district. I believe this is something that they've done in the past from what the representative to the committee shared at the time, but it's been some time. So I think that's something that needs to be done. done again. Continued support of Hatfield Celebration Committee to plan and coordinate funding and volunteers or support the development of this committee into a collaborative nonprofit to support community programming. Capable and resilient local government. Promote capacity in local governance, ensuring the town's departments are appropriately staffed and equipped. And they have some great suggestions. Evaluate whether town departments have the human resources necessary, i.e. staffing, training, management, appropriate pay to meet the current and projected service demands of the community. That's one thing that came up, I think, throughout conversation in the process, is that a lot of these things take careful planning, processes, all of that. And so if you have your resources already stretched thin within your existing offices, it's hard for people to make that space to actually pursue some of these different grant opportunities and whatnot that would help make some of the things talked about in this plan realistic financially. So there's some level of investment. Managing the town infrastructure efficiently kind of connects. Suggestions are investing in routine and capital maintenance, improvement activities at local roads, bridges, water supply, and resources. Again, making sure that your teams, your administration has the capacity to think long-term, helps in making that realistic. In terms of time, maximizing use of the town's existing facilities and services to promote financial resilience. Some suggestions include inventory and developing an integrated use and reuse plan for town-owned properties to promote their highest and best use in consideration of community needs and benefits, and in consideration of flood potential climate change impacts. While I'm not up to date with what's going on at the project across the street, to me, that seems like a good example of a former town resource that was able to actually be changed to something that could potentially be a town benefit in terms of housing, the old school. So I think, that to me, in some ways, that's a good example. Explore the strategic expansion of the community's wastewater infrastructure and support Hatfield farmers more actively. Some suggestions around that are regularly connect with growers to ensure they are accessing appropriate technical assistance, current grant opportunities, and service providers. Yeah, I mean, I think, just like it's helpful for us when we're having, if you have a question related to your taxes, to be able to stop the collector's office, for some farmers and whatnot, it would be great if you have a question about, how can you help me out for this money I'm applying for that'll help clear all my ditches, to have someone who to go to and who has the capacity and the space to be able to help you. And so just, increasing our infrastructure to be able to support activities like that.
Or even if it's just pointing them to the resources that already exist, like CISA,
Yeah. And we try to do some of that in anticipation of this problem in our plan by specifically mentioning some of the resources that are available for some of these things as a way to direct people to it. Them that I'll make available that even goes into that a little bit further that we've worked on. The planning in Massachusetts, the planning board is the authority to officially adopt a new planning board is the authority to officially adopt a new master comprehensive plan. So I don't know what that means for you all tonight in your meeting, but that's on you, Steph. In order for this to not become just something on a shelf, we recommend the select board create an action committee where we can keep the document alive and hold committees accountable to following through on the vision of the plan. I mean, some of us thought that big map that we created, the big image, we could just get blown up and post it directly behind the select board's table where they sit for town meetings. Like that could just be a massive event. Constantly remind all of us of where we're going. Because again, the value of a comprehensive plan is almost nothing if you don't do anything with it. And I can't say I'm not somewhat cynical, but I'm trying not to be, to be honest, We also plan to print copies of the poster and hang those in town hall as a reminder. And we're gonna have copies of the full plan too, available in different places like the library, town hall, maybe one or two other places we were talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe the school library or something like that.
Yeah, we have a small printing amount of funds left for printing.
Yeah,
that
small
we can do
amount.
upon the plan.
And they're very expensive to print, it turns out. So yeah, that's everything. It was a lot. It was a lot of work. Everyone, all of the different town committees had representatives who were actively engaged. A 2-year process where community members were given many opportunities to have input. And we made sure throughout the process that everything was available online, from the committee meetings to even things related to discussions that we were having. The material was always available on a website that we tried to publicize as best as we could.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate you going through that.
Thank you.
Thanks for distilling the 300 pages in a way that is digestible and presentable to the public and us. So.
Well, none of this would be possible without all your hard work. and I don't know how you do it, actually. You definitely played a major leadership role in getting all of this done. And so I appreciate that.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah. Anything else for me, or am I good?
Yeah, any comments from the board? We've talked a little bit, because this was delayed a few times. We've talked about this on and off as a board. So this is great to see all these different conversations that we have threaded together and weaved together in this presentation.
And to assuage some of your cynicism, our work with the ADUs has addressed some of that.
Yes.
Yeah, we've already done like a
We're
couple.
getting somewhere.
That's great.
Baby step.
Yeah, there are several things on this list I feel like we're making some progress on.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right, great. Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, I'll see you then. Yep.
All right.
Long presentation. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So with that, it is up to us. I'm assuming we've all read it. We've talked about it, like I said, multiple times. I think it's, in a way, good that we've been delayed on this, because we've been able to think about this and take time to read it and digest it, instead of being rushed into reading it and presenting and adopting. So I don't know how we feel about adopting tonight, but we totally can. If there's any other comments on the project.
All of my questions or concerns are probably post-adoption anyways. And they have, the only question I have, and maybe you can answer this, is I'm referring to this chart, which is, to my not even all that old eyes, is nearly impossible to read, but they use, the plan uses the traditional short, medium, long-term timeframe, funding sources, all of that. And that all makes sense. That's all good general sort of basic strategy for implementing these things. Once the plan is adopted, assuming the select board appoints committee, is the committee going to refine this implementation plan and set priorities?
Right. So that's the thing, is like the select board, at the presentation that the comprehensive plan committee gave to them a few weeks ago, they seemed completely open and willing to implement an implementation committee, or whatever we would want to name it.
Yeah.
They would say probably shortly in the new year, pending our approval. And it's really up, we wanting to make sure that the committee's pushing things forward, but also is something that you brought up, I think, Doug, like staying within the scope of the fact that it's really a committee without too much teeth, really. So I think that's all to be negotiated, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I think anything that we as a board are willing to, this is my personal opinion, are willing to wanting to pick up and run with, great. And if there's priorities that they think should be at the top of the stack, we should weigh that in whatever we're planning.
One of the more, and this is not speaking out of school, but maybe not speaking about the game we're playing right here. One of the biggest challenges in West Hampton is the fact that our implementation committee took upon themselves to start implementing things, which caused a lot of confusion with existing sitting boards, committees, and employees, where an employee had a committee member reach up to him and say, I need you to do this for me. And the employee went, no.
Yeah, not in my job.
And that's the importance of making sure that the implementation committee works and interfaces with the select board, which is the oversight authority for all departments. But also they need to maintain good, clear communication with all the various boards and committees. This chart is all we need to start running, and we certainly would want to have the implementation committee suggest quick, easy things that we can check off and get done. But otherwise, I think it's these priorities, if it's on the planning board, that would be our job to sort of pursue as we think we can.
But the oversight of that committee would be to the select board.
The oversight of the committee would be to the select board. I would expect that once a year, once every 6 months, whatever, that committee would come here and say, hey, wanted to get you an update. Here's what's going on. And we note that you've just done these 2 things. Congratulations. We hope you're gearing up for these next 2 things because that's coming up in the time frame. And what can we do to help? What kind of funding do you need? Boom, boom, boom. That's fine. You know, but again, so that's what I'm saying. This is all sort of post approval. I don't have any problem at all with approving the plan tonight. So.
Yeah, I think
Too
the
much work has gone into
implementation.
it, yeah.
Yeah, I think the implementation committee would definitely be a community, trying to bring the people together, all the committees together that need to work together, because frankly, we work pretty siloed. And I think there is an opportunity for us to be more in talks with different committees about certain things.
Yep.
So I think that could be
Yep.
one of the prongs of that committee, but yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've being a part of the committee, definitely, there was good representation of folks, not just like of thoughts and ideas, as well as being people from different committees.
Yep.
It was interesting that we all, had different backgrounds, perspectives and things, but we aligned on a lot of the same things, which was really encouraging. Not in a way that was, this is just one voice of Hatfield that's driving this, but it was nice to see a bunch of different voices that actually were rallying around a few things, which were really made me encouraged that this is a solid, comprehensive, and also taking into account all the views of Hatfield in this plan.
So do we need a motion to adopt? I make a motion, we adopt as presented, the comprehensive plan.
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. All right, great. Our comprehensive plan, our updated master plan has been approved, and we'll go ahead with what we need to do for documenting that with the state and going forward, so it's officially official. Awesome.
Chapter 84 of MGL.
All right. Next item on our agenda is the ADU bylaw update. Doug, it was something at our last meeting, Doug, you kind of right before the meeting came with updated ADU changes. Was it right before the meeting? No, I don't remember. You gave us.
Yeah. Last meeting, you mean?
Yep.
Yes.
And we were kind of waiting to discuss it to give time to us to read it, although I'm not seeing it in my packet. I did read it before.
And
And I feel like there might have been updates since then.
there are. And the state still hasn't rolled out its regulations or its interpretations of what the law actually says.
Really?
It's kind of a mess. So
We can kick the
I
can.
suggest we don't do anything on this right now. We wait another month or so and see if we get updated guidance. There are a couple of different regional planning organizations that have rolled out model bylaws, which they're worth the paper they're written on, but I'm not sure I would want to take them to the bank.
Right.
Somewhere between all of them will be where the state lands.
So as long as we're just mentally anticipating having something on the town meeting agenda
Yes.
to update it,
Without a doubt.
we have a few months
4 months.
till we get there. Yeah.
Yes, so I recommend caution and slow progress on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll keep my eyes on things.
So we'll just keep moving. Yeah. And I know Bella's keeping an eye on it too. But she similarly said to me, she's like, things are changing, that she doesn't feel confident in being ready to approve anything because things are still changing.
Can you grab a couple of those model bylaw
can.
drafts? Yeah,
Yep.
that'd be good, just
Yep,
to get our
yep.
heads around what they're thinking about.
And again, I've seen one from a law office, from KP Law. I've seen another one from the Martha's Vineyard Commission. I've seen another one from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. And they all write bylaws differently, so it's not something we can just plug in. No matter what, there's going to have to be modification to it to make it fit our use. So,
Right.
yeah, I will, but I'm happy to get them and forward them to folks to look at if you want to see.
Yeah, to Bella and us would be great.
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is just this very long
Bridges.
letter about the Mass DOT notifying, updating 3 bridges along 5 and 10. Well, no, not 5 and 10, along 91. Or is it 5 and 10?
5 and
See,
10?
I don't even know.
Yeah, they're over 5 and 10. 91 bridges to go over 5 and 10.
Yep, and there's one of them that's in Hatfield, and then 2 of them are in Whately.
Yep.
And it's just giving us a heads up, and if we want to give any feedback. And so I just wanted to put this on the agenda for the public's knowledge. It's the bridge that they're referring to is the one that goes over between Pantry Road and North Hatfield Road. That bridge that goes over there. They anticipate updating that. But it's on 5 and 10, but it's the bridge it's between Pantry Road and North Hatfield Road. That they plan on working on these in the next, what did they give a date?
3 to 12 years.
Right.
I skimmed through the letter. I didn't see any details there. I tried to look at the plan. Do they suggest limitation on use while the work is going on?
Right.
Or
So
did
I
they get
think,
that detailed?
I think that would be the question that we would have,
Yeah.
is how that would impact
People moving there.
people moving and transporting,
Yep.
moving. Wow.
Transportating. Yeah.
Transportating across it.
That's when you're moving
I was
potatoes.
gonna say, Marlene has a set of plans, I think, in her office that they sent.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, the modification of or whatever, that's fine. But even like with the Sunderland Bridge where they did major redecking between Deerfield and Sunderland, they still maintain 2 open lanes the entire time.
Right.
Whether that's needed or if they just want to put temporary stoplights, one on either side, that's fine. As long as it doesn't turn into you can go north, but you can't go south because now we've got major amounts of traffic that are going to get rerouted through the center of town or something.
Or through like Pantry Road, which is a very narrow roadway.
Right, well, it just wouldn't
Yeah.
work out that way. Yeah, absolutely.
Last half explains all of what you're saying.
Okay, all right. So I'll look at it.
Great.
Yeah. And that's select board is more than planning board anyway, so.
Yep, it's more of a heads up to us.
Yep.
And so I just wanted to put it on the agenda just so other people get aware of it. Also, the plans are at 25% complete. So we're
There's-
still a couple years away, I would imagine, but heads up.
Yep.
All right, next, I'm gonna skip for number 5. Oh wait, no, that's related to Lori. So Lori has updated our A&R application for approval, because remember how before it requests 8 copies, it requests them be sent on a CD or digital copies, which obsolete at this point. So Lori updated the Form A, which is just a simple majority vote that we can take here to update our A&R forms so that we don't have to end up with a gazillion copies of large copies and we can actually get the digital, like you said, Lori, you can't even access the CDs that people send because we don't have anything in the town
I
hall.
found an old computer that had a drive, and so I tried to put someone who would submit it with the CD. It just would not work.
So we're updating to be with the 21st century here. So,
I make a motion that we accept the updates to the ANR application.
Second,
any discussion?
Yes, the only thing I would suggest is that under item 3, page on the second page,
Yep.
number of existing lots, fine. Area of existing lot or lots isn't necessary for an A&R. We don't need to consider that.
Wouldn't it be in case we needed to look at whether or not it affected if there was an encroachment onto a piece that was non-conforming, we would need to know the square footage of that lot in order to see if it was less conforming.
So in other words, let me just kick it back and see if I understand what you just asked. So if somebody proposes a lot line division, dividing a lot into two parcels, but one of the parcels is non-conforming.
Or that parcel is at the limit at which it is conforming, we would need to know that. 40,000, so let's say it's 40,000 feet. If that lot is at 40,000 feet, that would affect our decision as to an encroaching cut in the survey.
I understand what you're saying. A&Rs aren't a determiner of whether a lot is viable for a building lot. And there may be other, and I'm just stating this because I've read it in case law. There's reasons where people may want to take a whole lot and cut it into two non-conforming lots that are outside of the scope of what an A&R can do. So I want to take a whole lot, cut it in half because I'm taking that piece and selling it to the guy next to me or whatever.
I guess what comes to mind to me is our most recent A&R where he was taking a small piece of property from the next door.
Yep.
And so we would need to know the square footage of that property so as to make sure that we're not making that property less conforming by giving that space.
Right.
That would be why I think that information.
Sure, an A&R plan can't create a nonconformity.
I guess that would be why I think that information would be necessary.
Okay.
Also, like, what does it hurt to just ask for it, even if we don't need it? It's like a little math.
Well,
It's not like it's a-
one of the things that might go along with this would be specifications for the plan, that on an A&R plan, the town of Hatfield wants to see us, and it can just be a schedule, the area of the lots of each lot as it exists and the area of each lot to be proposed, which I imagine would be on the plan anyways.
Right.
Very many in frontage. The frontage, and does Hatfield zoning require that the frontage be maintained to a certain depth on the lot for it to be conforming?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so.
No,
So if I had a-
offset, right?
so
Those
that-
are standard offset, building offsets, right?
Well, I'm thinking if I've got a 200 foot on a road, and then I narrow down to a 30-foot way to get back to my buildable parcel way at the back.
Well, then
You call it a flag lot, if you will. In some towns, that width, that minimum road frontage width has to be maintained back to a certain depth for it to qualify. I didn't know if Hatfield does.
Is that a road or a driveway?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. So we're in that situation a little bit on Elm Street right now with the doctor's house behind, and there's not a lot. I mean, he took the house in the front.
There might be a shared driveway situation.
There, are they?
I don't know. Well, technically,
What are we talking about here?
I think it's just keeping, it's the 3B. I'd say just keep it.
That's
for-
fine. No, it's fine.
We
Yeah.
can have this exercise.
I mean, if folks understand that, yeah, where if a lot line change creates a nonconformity, then the planning board wouldn't allow it, because we just wouldn't. But, so, yeah, leaving it there is fine. Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that I would, just for the planning board use part where it says thumb drive, change the wording to it says electronic copy.
USB drive or whatever.
Or just even they can just
Electronic
email it.
copy.
It doesn't even need to be a thumb
I
drive.
would want to put 24 inches by 36 inches, 17 inches, and then not scanned copy because that
Yes.
degrades the copy. We want an electronic copy. If you say scanned copy, then people are going to want to follow that and give us a crappier copy. So scratch the word scanned.
So we had a motion and a second, and now there's further discussion.
Remove, we could remove with discussed changes.
So we're changing it, you want me to keep the 24 by 36?
I'd put little double quotes by them indicating inches, same with the 11 by 17.
And then instead of scanned copy,
Electronic copy, sent, yeah,
I'm
electronic.
sorry, where are you?
just at the top of note where it
Note,
says
the
note.
very top.
Okay.
And then on the planning board purposes, it says thumb drive, but I think just for consistency, it should
Yeah, we'll
just
say
be
electronic.
I
electronic.
didn't see that either.
Do you want me to take thumb drive completely out?
Or just change it to electronic copy on,
Yes,
planning
a
board
copy
use
sent
one.
electronically, electronic copy where it says thumb drive.
what's this? So we have.
Yeah, take
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't want, I'm okay with that, not having.
Your copy sent electronically. They can ask. You can email it to me, you can give me a thumbs up, either way. I can't take CDs.
I can't.
So we're only requiring them to submit one full-size plan, the Mylar?
And then 5 copies of the plan. Yeah.
Okay, the 11 by 17.
Mhm.
Gross.
What do we sign? Just the Mylar?
Yes.
Which means the town doesn't keep a,
The town keeps it,
Full
but
size?
it'll be, the town won't keep the full size.
so we're only keeping the 11 by 17s. And then, and the electronic, of course, but
They keep the Mylar, they get the Mylar.
Yeah,
that you sign,
to record.
And then all the 11 by 17s, you guys can sign those. Those are just staying here. They're just having a file.
the building
Yeah.
inspector.
It doesn't have to be that, because if they send it electronically will have the right, whether it will have the right measurements. You know, like the scale will be right.
Fair question, though.
Just when we have all these 24 by 36 and there's 8 copies, and then we're trying to break
Right.
them into 5.
no, I was saying you don't need 8,
Well,
but
A&Rs are usually 1 page, but it's just sort of to conserve some space.
And it's, and in our bylaws, we ask for like 8 copies too, but this is the easy thing. We don't have to bring it to town meeting.
The
It's,
other people have to.
Yeah.
People have to work that more than 200 pounds.
thank you for doing that, Lori.
This is easier.
All right, can we update that motion then? Do we need to vote? down
After
the
further
other one?
discussion, I propose that I move to approve the edited A and R.
is that an amendment or the actual motion?
I retracted my motion.
Okay,
Retracted, removed.
approve the form as,
With recent,
All right, the last piece on
Bella.
the agenda is update from Bella, which I forwarded to you via email. And then she has this beautiful binder that she's putting together of all these things that we're going to be hopefully working towards, which is great. Just top line, she was saying that she was doing some digging because DPW and Marlene thought we had complete streets, but we do not, which we should. So that's like an easy lift, low lift thing. So she's just looking into that. I think having someone like her on staff at Town Hall would be helpful in moving things along that might not be exactly in our purview, but that could help moving some of that along. What else did she have in here?
correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't, the first step is we adopt a complete street, the town adopts a complete streets policy.
Yes.
That has to go to the state, it has to get approved. Once approved, then we can start looking at the possibility of getting grants for various projects.
Correct.
My understanding is that as a policy, that has to be approved by the select board.
Probably.
Right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So we can encourage them to consider one.
Correct.
Okay.
Or like have input on what we would want to
Sure.
see. Correct.
Or give them a draft version to play with.
Right. Give it, yeah, I'm sure that's something that we can work with Bella to make it a low lift. The piece that she was working on was the guiding. Planning Commission put together like a couple sheet about that's deep dives into that. So she's going to be working with that. And then the other part is just updating and keeping updated this, the document you referred to with the really small font, and keeping us,
printed on one page.
so keeping that up to date and then making sure that, she's helping track resources and things for that. So I don't want to speak really for her because she's not here tonight, but I just wanted to pass those things along that she's moving on things. We reached out to Pioneer Valley Planning Commission about any resources for updating our zoning map, look at our zoning, and they pointed us to the Municipal Vulnerability Action Preparedness Grant. But we would need to tie it in with something else related to what came out. And that and the application window just like closed for that. Our statement of intent for applying for that grant just closed. So there are other resources, but I'm waiting to hear back from them on that. So that's that update. I have too many sheets of paper. I lost my agenda. I think that was it. Our next meeting is, thank you, December 4th. And then I also wanted just to note that normally we meet the first Wednesday of the month. The first Wednesday of January is January 1st, so we will not be meeting on that day.
Thank you.
So it'd be January 8th. I just wanted to put that out now.
Sounds good.
With that, great. Can I get a second?
Oh, why not? Sure.
Kind of having fun.
Don't let it end.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right. The November 6th, 2024 Planning Board meeting is adjourned at 7:41. Thank you.